All right. Hello, everyone. So I have a presentation with a lot of nice, colorful pictures, so it should be entertaining. So my name is Jakub Krčmář. I'm a co-founder at Veracity Protocol. And I came here with a simple topic, which is the key challenges of tokenizing the physical world, because the way I see it, the adoption of decentralized system and blockchain, physical world there is a key for that as well, and it has challenges. So the physical world is rather annoying compared to digital one to work with. I guess I don't need to describe it here at all. And the tokenization, what it can bring, there's so many things. We can imagine my favorite example is, for example, this artwork from Pablo Picasso, which probably nobody here has enough money to buy, but which successful tokenization can bring a new democratized way of people can invest even few dollars in painting like that, and which is just one of 1,000 examples. So the main question is how we connect physical objects or assets of items of any kind with digital ledgers. So it's even more annoying that there's this thing in supply chains which right now are rather very complex, not really connected, and there's no end-to-end traceability and surveillance. The problem with that, we have a lot of sensors, but there's a lot of room for data manipulation, for unverified and inaccurate data, and of course for counterfeits in the process. And of course, blockchain itself is not the solution. For example, with artworks, we see a lot of blockchain-based solutions which are saying the provenance on blockchain will solve the problem, or it could be with pharmaceutics, or it could be in any other sector. But in the supply chain, just with provenance on blockchain and with no link to the physical item itself. Of course, the item can be replaced at any time. The data can be entered wrongly by a wrong party, wrong data. There's a lot of room for manipulation. Tags and chips are markers, are also not perfect and final solution. There's a lot of items and examples where you can't attach it to it, you can't work with it. For example, again, nobody will let you to put anything on an expensive artworks. And again, there's problem with them. What if they are removed or duplicated or tampered with, or there's false data again in a play, and the normal user doesn't have any way how to recognize it was tampered with, or what to do with it when it's missing. And the main problem is that you are connecting the entry in the digital ledger with the tag or marker itself, but not to the physical item itself. So, and this is, of course, a problem not only in art, but also in manufacturing industry, where you have supply chain manufacturers ordering parts from China, 3D printed, without any way of checking the provenance, luxury goods, people buying fakes with no ways how to check if it's original, and then being fined, like in France. In pharmaceuticals, where there are actually people dying because of fraudulent drugs and security papers and on and on and on. So, of course, we have artificial intelligence here to help. So hello to that. And so it's just not a buzzword and not something as simple, just like image-based search, which is already working and it's nice, but we are here solving a bigger problem. And it's basically how to, for example, identify and secure and then verify, for example, two identical things. So again, in artwork, you can't really, if it's a perfect forgery, you can't tell which one is original, not even if you look up close, because with current technologies, it can go so far, you have no way of telling, and it could be same way for packaging or for a box of pills or in any other market and example. And so basically what we do with our one-proof technology is that we use basically fingerprinting of the microstructure of the physical item itself to do the verification and authentication. We're basically using the physical item itself and its surface as a sufficient data source for for authentication and for linking it with a digital entry. So for example, with artwork, you take fingerprints, the close-ups, and then it's easily saved to stamped, and this is the missing link between the physical item and the digital ledger. This, of course, this process works with any material with a unique structure where unique details can be captured. And so, for example, to give you an example of how far it is, it works with digital prints from high-density printer. So we can identify each one, and it works with any material with a unique structure. It can be leather, metal, wood, paper, textile. It can be also the way how luxury goods manufacturers are making labels is unique because they are using some material in a unique way, in unique machines. And this can be all we can teach the algo using machine learning, for example. And it's that far that just using a smartphone, we can even tell the difference between individual sheets of white paper. So just to basically show you how cutting edge the tech is. And this is, when you have something like this, it's then very simple to use this fingerprint, the material structure, in many industries for many things, in many supply chains to solve a whole lot of problems. And then, of course, to add this missing link between blockchain, for example, or centralized database, or any other digital ledger, and the physical item itself. And since it's lightning talk, it should be fast, right? So that's basically a taste of what we do. To give you more info, we have other technologies we work with. We have visual-based, computer vision-based, condition reported and automated QA. We're also using audio and machine learning for early detection of malfunctions, and many technologies which basically, in our view, we used to be able to not only link the physical items to digital ledgers, but also track them through the supply chains in their entire life cycle, all the way from raw materials to the manufacturer, to the buyer, to secondary market. And yeah, that's it. And I would love to hear your questions. Thanks.
Doesn't the surface of the materials change over time?
Yeah, so there's many variables in the play. The surface can change. If use case is to use mobile phones, you have a lot of different types of cameras, different types of lenses, for example, and it's something where we deploy machine learning. So you can use the same material with different lenses. It can be stretched, it can be changed, but you can still teach it so it works. For example, we do this demonstration. We basically take white sheets of paper, we stamp them. You cannot tell by naked eye which one. It all looks the same, but there's a difference which we can tell. And even if you draw over it, it still works, because the way how we are teaching the algo is basically to overcome this problem. So for example, with artworks, there's crack over time in painting, or it can get stretched, but it's again something you can teach the algo. And when we are using also dataset-based machine learning, where you don't even have to use fingerprinted, you just teach the algo what makes the original based on the material, unique material properties, then it's even easier.
How do you find the fingerprint? I mean, do you mark it up?
It's a good question. So what we use augmented reality. So basically, we do like two-layer approach. First one is you take the overview picture of the item, and then the algorithm selects places where to take fingerprints. And then augmented reality on the phone, for example, guides you where to take it for protection or for later verification. Of course, in industrial setup on like production line, for example, it's much easier.
that connectivity between the supply chain and if you have the markup at the very beginning of the factory, it goes around the globe. It goes to the box, box to pallet, pallet to container, container to ship, ship to container. Many places where people can swap the box. You'll only check your fingerprint at the end of the supply chain, which is too late. So it's like the weeks too late before it was stolen. So how this connectivity is interesting, but not really fast enough to catch the problem.
So what's it's incorrect. So what's important to know here is that any physical item can be protected and tracked. So it doesn't have to be the item itself. It can be the box, it can be the pallet, it can be the packaging, it can be the seal or anything. So then it depends on the use case and on how much in the supply chain you apply the tech to track not only the physical item at the end, but also all the packaging it's involved with, or the containers itself, for example.
What I meant, if I will swap it with the fakes. So what happens in supply chain is that you have the container, you have the one pallet with the iPhones or pairs or whatever, and someone will swap that particular pallet. And it will continue to travel, and you will not discover you have the one pallet of the fakes until somewhere at the end in the shop, or maybe a little bit earlier, will scan and find that fingerprint. So that's where that was my point.
Yeah, so for example, for that particular use case, of course, normally in supply chains they have cameras scanning the QR code so they can identify the pallets, right? But the QR code can be replaced, can be duplicated, you can mess up the process in many ways. So we see there's a lot of opportunity to change the pallet. But if there's already cameras inside and if we apply our algo to it, our tech, you can also do the security of the external security elements. You can secure the position of the label with the QR code on the structure of the material itself, which gives you enough information, and it's impossible to replicate the same way. That's for example, and there's many other ways how you can do it with another technologies as well, including chips embedded inside, which you can connect to remotely, and it's all risk management then. But we can deal in the whole supply chain, no matter. For example, one use case we solve is in Industry 4.0, where it's fully automated factory, and there's this process from the incoming raw parts in the containers, in a cargo, all the way to finished products, and there's so many risks in the between that something else came, or a bomb came, or something's missing, something is in wrong state, is damaged, and so on and so on. So you can apply this tech to it, and then use all this information to store it with the digital passport, with the identity of that item on the blockchain for later provenance check and for verification. So for example, in supply chains, the parties in the supply chains doesn't have to trust each other. They don't have to trust the central authority. They just trust the mechanism, which is the beauty of it. If it answered your question.
So you said there are many ways to verify the quality, well, that the product is what it is. So we can scan the surface itself, we can scan the labels, the position of labels, etc. But do you have an algorithm how you will do that? So what is the protocol in this case, what you will scan, what you will rely on while analyzing that object at the end?
So can you repeat? I didn't.
So you said there are many ways using your protocol, using your technology to ensure that's the correct object.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. We can scan the surface itself, we can scan key points, fingerprints, we can scan the package, we can scan the label, we can scan position of the label and verify it. So, but what the way will you choose? How it actually will be done? Do you already have that protocol, that flow?
No, all the technology I was talking about is already developed, is working, can be right now used in any part of the supply chain. What we are developing right now is to integrate all this technology on top of blockchain-based infrastructure, where you can save all this information and where businesses can come and use their own blockchain solution or specific blockchain solution and connect it in a modular way with this tech. So that's... it depends on the use case. So we're extremely flexible and in what to use where, because it can vary a lot based on the use case. Somewhere you can solve a big issue with just storing one simple information in one part of the process. Somewhere you need to do a whole lot of information in most of the supply chain process. So it really depends. It's not simple to answer. I guess it's too many questions, but I'll be around. So thank you very much. Ja. In the pockets. Okay.
Let me put this on here. Are we good to go? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Jim Warnock. I'm Director of Outreach for Human Rights Foundation that's focused on supporting grassroots activists that are fighting dictatorship and authoritarianism around the world. We support people fighting for freedom of the press, freedom of speech, and the free flow of information and technology. I'll be honest, when I first got asked to come talk about this, I was not really sure where our worlds kind of overlapped. I was a little bit concerned the work we do wasn't really didn't really fit in with this world, but the more I've been getting to know you guys and the more I've been talking to the community, I really see that it's really about control, right? You guys are focused on control of wealth and control of money. What we're really focused on is control of information and media and empowering those to access information where the government is trying to limit that access. Worst case scenario specifically, oh, there we go. Okay. How many of you guys are familiar with this picture? Do you guys recognize what this is? Right? North Korea, right? So to me, this is kind of the starkest representation of government control. And control here, you see this bright spot here is Seoul in South Korea. And the only spot in North Korea at night is Pyongyang, where the elite live. I don't really want to go into the whole history of North Korea. We can talk about that later. But here where am I supposed to point this? There we go. Okay. Yeah, here you can kind of see a layout of how this works. And basically the divide in income between North and South Korea is the largest difference in GDP between two neighboring countries in the world. And it appears that every system that was set up to support the North Korean people has really failed, from the UN to these two people over here. I don't know how close you guys have been following these summits, but not at any point of any time when they've been patting each other on the back and talking about how great they are, has either of these men ever mentioned the idea of North Korean human rights, of the people, of letting the people travel freely, and asking this man why. Why are your people not allowed to have any sort of outside media information? In North Korea, there's no internet, there's no outside books, there's one TV station, one radio station, and one newspaper, and it's all controlled by the government. I'm not cool with that. And nobody we really work with is cool with that. Here you can see, but there's one thing that the leaders of North Korea can't really control, and that is the 950-mile border here that exists between North Korea and China. When the Soviet Union collapsed, the North Korean people, or the North Korean government, lost its state-sponsored system of food support. And in the results, almost 2 million people in North Korea starved to death. In response, Kim Jong-il had to open the trade borders with China in order to allow food to come in. And as food started to trickle across the border, so too did DVDs, clothing, DVD players. And most recently, the most prevalent form of sharing information comes in a very small, very easily concealed item. You guys might recognize this, called a flash drive. We've done a lot of different programs in the past years at HRF to try to... There we go. to try to get information into the country in various ways. We started with a little bit more flashy sort of ways, doing hot air balloon launches, working specifically with North Korean defector organizations to find out what would be the most effective, what information they needed. In response to our flashy hot air balloon launches, we got death threats from the North Korean government. Actually, this is kind of funny because our office is in the Empire State Building in New York, and we got a fax to our office, and our whole staff was like, "What is that noise? What is that?" We didn't realize we had a fax, but this is what we're dealing with. There was a fax come in that was a bomb threat to our office from the North Korean government saying, if you continue your work, we're going to blow up your office. Well, we are in the Empire State Building, so if he wants to blow up our office, it's a whole other can of worms that's going to start. But this just goes to show you the level. You have to start wondering, why would a leader of a country be so afraid of his people having a magazine, of his people seeing a movie? What is it? It's about control. It's about control. And we really want to empower the people in North Korea to be able to make their own decisions, at least have the knowledge of the outside world to make their own decisions. We've hosted several other events. We did a hackathon where in San Francisco, where we brought 100 different tech creative advisors to come and try to figure out, like, how can we connect this country? How can we work around a system that is so set up to isolate and control the people? And it's really funny because with all of the brilliant brains, everybody trying to create mesh networks and discuss all of these new technologies, we ended up coming up with something that was just very analog, that came from all of the North Korean defectors that we work with. After hearing so many different stories, we kind of started to see a through line in these stories, and everyone we talked to would tell us a part of their story that always involved coming to contact with some sort of outside media information. Like, I saw this movie that made me think that, oh, maybe, like the world I've been told isn't real, or I read Animal Farm and it started to make me think that, oh, I'm like living in this on a daily basis. But so 3 years ago, these buttons are not working. There we go. 3 years ago, we launched a program called, I told you I'm not technical at all. Now it's off. Okay, 3 years ago, we launched a program called Flash Drives for Freedom, designed in a way just to meet people where they're at. Most people in North Korea do not have access to a computer, but they have access to a Chinese media viewing device called a Notel. It's basically like a portable DVD player, but it's got a USB and a micro SD port, so they can play media in that way. So we just started kind of in a grassroots movement saying, hey, everybody in the Western world has 7 or 8 flash drives in their drawer laying around that they're not using. Why don't you send them to us? We will professionally wipe them. We send them to our partners in South Korea, who are all North Korean defectors. We let them curate the content, because we've done this in the past where people are saying, oh, you're sending Western propaganda into North Korea and they don't want to see it. We're like, okay, we're not going to curate the content. We will let the North Korean people decide what they want to see. We're just going to try to flood the market and make outside information and media as readily available to the population as possible. So this is a little bit old, but since we started, we've collected almost 200,000 flash drives. And is this the video? I don't know what's happening. I'm sorry. That's not my slide. I can tap dance while we wait for this. Well, since we launched, we've collected almost 200,000 flash drives. Oh, well, now the sound is playing on the video, but not the. What he said. Oh, here we go. Okay. So I just wanted to play a little video about what we've been covering in the last couple of years, because it's really become this grassroots movement that was able to engage people in the conversation about the convergence of technology and human rights. I'll let you say this first. fine, don't worry about it.
What North Korea really fears is their people becoming aware of their suppression. If we continue and expand our activity of disseminating information to educate North Korean people in the long run, I'm absolutely sure that North Korean people one day will stand up to change the laws.
That's old too, that number. It's 200,000 now. Okay. So I felt like that could kind of express a little bit better than I could verbally. But you know what I really appreciate about this program and what we've done is that, you know, is that, you know, it starts with a problem and we found a very basic solution, but it's a way to engage people that might not be actively seeking to get into this conversation about technology and information as a tool. You know, the same as, I guess we all kind of felt that when, you know, the World Wide Web was created, that it was just going to connect everybody and that information was going to bring us all together. But the first thing that dictators start to do as they consolidate power is isolate and start to control access to information. What we're trying to do through this project in a very sort of analog hack sort of way is just to disseminate, to break down these walls and to get people the information that they're desperate for. You know, we have people come up to us and say, well, aren't you worried about the consequences of people coming and finding and like being found with these drives? Yes, you know, we worry about that every day, but we're not like dropping these flash drives in somebody's backyard and they find it like, oh, what's this? No, they're actively seeking to go buy it at the black market. They know the risk they're running and they're willing to take that risk because they're so desperate to connect with the outside world. And I feel like it's our duty. We know what's happening, and if we don't do something, then they're just going to be in the dark forever. They're going to exist like that satellite. So like that satellite image that we saw before. But we have the power to change it and start with a very small plastic piece of material that you might throw in the garbage. You might not even know is in your desk. But if you send it to us, we can repurpose it, give it new life. It's a recycling story, and you can, you know, break down some barriers. So that's what we're here to do, and I'm really appreciative of your time and you guys coming and listening to me run my mouth for a couple minutes.
Thanks. It's really awesome. So I would have so many questions.
Okay.
We can talk afterwards.
I got answers. Let's go.
Maybe just two for now. Is it possible that you actually launched the USBs with the balloons like that from China, or is that an issue for China? Second question, how is the data selected by the North Korean defectors looking like? What are they actually sending there?
Oh yes, and I should have covered that earlier. But we've, you know, actually the balloons, when we've done that before, were launched from the South Korean side across the DMZ. And honestly, the balloons are more for publicity, more for PR. I mean, some of them are effective, and they've been doing that for years. But it's unreliable. You never know. We've actually put trackers in there to see where they go, and some of them end up in, you know, the river. So we're more and more working within the natural trading economy that's happening along the Chinese border. So we're not doing the balloons in China. Certainly not. It's just not as visually stimulating to just show somebody like handing something in public or loading it off a truck. You know, when we've done, you know, for the media, and, you know, we had the BBC and certain people that came and followed us, and that was something that was good for their visuals. But the day-to-day activity that's happening is much more discreet. Although I will say that the black market economy that's happening, that sprang up after the fall of the Soviet Union in North Korea, it's a very open black market. It's something, it's like, we equate it to like the Hunger Games, if you've seen that, where there's a black market, the police know it's a market, it's open, but it has to exist, so it's tolerated. And in terms of the content, it's been all sorts of different things. You know, actually, one thing that I love that we've kind of, as an organization, Human Rights Foundation has started kind of separating ourselves from the content for a lot of various reasons. A lot of it, you know, we don't really have to worry about licensing issues because I don't think North Korea really worries about that in general. But some of the content that we send in could be not particularly, we don't own a lot of it. But one thing that we do have that's amazing is Wikipedia created an offline read-only version of the entire Korean language Wikipedia that we can fit on an 8 gig flash drive. So we're like, hi, here is all of human knowledge in one stick. Start reading and just maybe start with that chapter on North Korea and just see what the rest of the world might be saying. I'm not saying it's the worst place in the world. I'm saying that there is always room for a counter narrative there. But most of what's going in is honestly like K-pop videos, South Korean soap operas. I had a meeting. Actually, I had a meeting with Mark Cherry, the creator of Desperate Housewives, because apparently Desperate Housewives is very popular there, and they were waiting for the 6th season. So I had to ask him, I was like, so are you cool with me sending a lot of your show into North Korea? It's going to help free a ton of people. He's like, I just don't want to know about it. He's like, please do not put my name in any article that's associated with this because I don't, there's a lot of fear of people being targeted if they're associated with this. So we did a program where we sent thousands of copies of that movie, The Interview, into North Korea right after the Sony hack. Sony definitely did not want to be associated with that, and I kept on tweeting at Seth Rogen and James Franco, like, you guys want to get involved, chime in on this? Crickets, nothing. But like I said, it's mostly we're just trying to reach to pop culture, and I think honestly, in the Czech Republic, you guys probably have an understanding about the power of Velvet Revolution and all this stuff about people wanting to have music, outside music and entertainment. And it really is a need. Like I said, these people know the risk they're running and they're so desperate to connect that they're willing to run the risk. They're willing to go to jail to watch Desperate Housewives. I don't even watch that show, but I'm just saying. You there.
Hi. With all the hype in South Korea with cryptocurrencies, a tremendous amount of awareness is there. I think the most evolved age I've ever seen. Probably
Totally.
like 70 to 80% general awareness on the streets and ownership of cryptocurrencies.
They say there's more crypto users per capita in South Korea than any country in the
Absolutely.
world.
My question about this is that, is there any relationship in that this is about, is that in Korean culture because of any sort of political motivation? Is there any of that that's being passed from South Korea to North Korea as part of this movement? That's my curiosity.
Like an official sense from the South Korean government?
No, not official sense, on the black market and in the content that's being pushed across by the defectors. Are they there yet?
Well, most of the defectors we're working with are based in South Korea, and they're, assimilated into society. But they are, it's more about showing a piece of life, like a genuine piece of life. One thing that some of the defectors living in Seoul have done specifically that I thought was fascinating was just take a camera with them and just go in their daily life, going to the grocery store, turning on the faucet, driving in the car, going to the parking lot, and just things that would seem kind of banal and basic to us that could really, be eye-opening for people in North Korea. Have been told, from birth that everyone else is living worse than you. Even if you're starving to death, everyone else is worse off than you. But you're not allowed to verify that. You're not allowed to leave the country or have any other sort of outside media to verify anything that we're saying. But in terms of what specifically South Korean, pro-South Korean media they're targeting, I think it's more just about entertainment. South Korean soap operas are addictive and they're really good. But I think it's more about reaching people in a less direct way. Like if we were sending in propaganda saying your government is lying to you, that would not be as effective as sending in some really good entertainment that shows people being free and expressing themselves and living a very open life, So I think it's more about just showing a vibrant, beautiful, colorful picture of the world. We did a whole program where we sent in love stories. We did love drives because in North Korean films, there's nothing that's ever done. There's no kissing. There's no hand-holding. There's no romance in North Korean films because there's nothing that's ever supposed to be done above the glorification of the leader. If somebody dies in a film, it's done specifically for the country or for the leader. I work with a young woman named Yeonmi Park that tells a story about her escape. She says when she was 12 years old, she saw a pirated copy of Titanic. And she said it took her like a month to watch because the power was very unreliable and she could only watch it in like 15, 20-minute increments. But when she finally got to the end, and spoiler alert, when she saw that Leonardo DiCaprio would sacrifice his life for the love of a woman, she said it just blew her mind because she had never seen that in a film. She had never seen, like, why would a man sacrifice for a woman? Oh, that's love. That's what I know in my heart as a human exists, but it's never been able to be shown to me clearly. So we said, okay, we're going to send in Romeo and Juliet translated into Korean and all these beautiful love songs and, all these love stories just to try to, just reach people at the core of their being. And I think when you get down to it, everybody kind of wants the same thing, but it's just a matter of if you force it directly in somebody's face, and they might not be as receptive to it as if you present an idea in more of an entertainment sort of context. Did that answer your question at all? I feel like I started, no? Sorry. Yeah, okay. Just like, no, but it's okay.
I was just wondering what, about the logistics of like distributing it through the black market. What type of are the numbers increasing, the demand, and like how do you supply it? Do you just like have an assortment of things based on this curation, and then just every month you're bringing them, or do you check to see whether you need to increase it or it's not too
well,
much?
honestly, we have more flash drives right now than we can actually get into the country, which is not a bad problem to have. It's kind of created this grassroots sort of movement where we have, schools and community groups and stuff that will do like a drive for us for like a month and collect 2,000 drives and send it to us. It's great. And we can take all sorts of sizes, all sorts of, from 64 gigs to, 256 megabytes. I don't even know if they make that anymore. But, we can always find something to put on there, whether it's books, whether it's outside newspapers or media. But it really is, they mass produce it a lot. So they'll decide ahead of time, like, okay, we want to send in this movie, or we want to do, 500 Wikipedia. And they'll just kind of create them all at once on these replicators. And then the beauty part about it is inside of North Korea, the Notels, the media viewing devices have a USB and a micro SD card port, so they can actually start replicating the content inside of that device. So we know that each drive that we're getting in there is not one impression. It could be 25. It could be exponential. It's honestly what's the most frustrating part about this program. It's really hard to have analytical data once it's inside North Korea than it is to get it out. And my partner over in the corner, Austin, he works specifically like on the border with China, and he was able to secure a Notel, an iPad, like a North Korean tablet and phone. We took it to DEF CON, to the hardware hacking village, and like tore it apart and got to like see the guts of what they had done with these machines to make it like where they couldn't communicate with like none of them have Wi-Fi, but they have Bluetooth. But it's it's kind of has to be based on a lot of anecdotal evidence, honestly, or anecdotal, stories, because we can't really trace where it goes once it's in there. But in terms of the content, it is like typically our partners will decide like, okay, we're doing 500 of this, and then they take it to the border and they send it in all at once. And then once they've been working in these distribution networks in North Korea for 10, 15 years. So they are our program. Our goal was to increase their effectiveness. They were having to buy all of their flash drives at retail cost, 10 or 15 bucks a piece, which really adds up. And honestly, they don't have any support, especially now with the new regime. They don't have any government support. And we were like, look, everybody has a drive laying around. It's not going to cost us anything. If we send it to you, then you cut out all of the cost of your hardware, and then we can make the cost within the black market significantly lower. And that way, anybody that wants to get it doesn't have to say like, well, am I going to eat today, or am I going to see the new Avengers movie? You could do both. I'll get to you, sir.
Last question.
He's had his hand up for a while. Here, fill that. Okay.
Okay, just a short. It's a great project. we're dealing with people who are not used to dealing with information in specific ways. Is that also addressed in your project?
Well,
Like turning people into information literate people, or?
that is, honestly, that is kind of why we had to start small. You know, we've had a lot of people come up to us like, oh, we should create mesh networks. We need to have different ways to encrypt this. But that is the big question is like, how do you protect? How do you start to get newer and more advanced technology to a culture where, especially outside of the capital, you know, most people don't even have access to a computer, you know, so then even to talk about the concept of the internet is a couple of steps away, right? So I think it's starting incrementally, you know, and what we want is just to have a population that has an awareness of what's happening in the outside world. So if regime change happens, if there's something that goes on, at least the population is not worried about, you know, everyone coming to kill them. Because it's kind of like there's always an invisible enemy in North Korea. You know, there's always somebody that's coming to get you. And the state is what's protecting you. And if you don't ever have any sort of context about what's actually, to refute that, then obviously that's what you're going to believe. That's what you're told from the beginning. But that is honestly kind of a roadblock. You know, we work, and I think the next step would be getting more hardware for a broader conversation about the convergence of technology and human rights and how we can empower people within this community to connect. Yes. I'm open to ideas on that. Yeah, okay.
So one more last question.
Thank you for that,
Okay.
because that really is an issue.
First of all, thank you. I believe you are doing a great job doing that. It's awesome. Those people got the message, saw the films, and decided they want that Western kind of life. They decided to change everything, like the woman on video saying, I wish someday I want to have something like that. But can they? Are there someone to help them to realize the dream, to make it true? Or they are themselves alone with no help?
That is, you know, that's a really good question. And obviously everybody in the country can't defect. You know, that'd be the goal. You see that there's a world outside of there and you want to go there, you know, but what if you don't have the means? And, you know, I know a lot of people that have tried to escape, and China now has a policy, it has for a while had a policy of repatriation. So if they catch you in the country, they send you back to North Korea where you are tortured and you're in prison for trying to escape. And the South Korean embassy in China is not allowed to accept or meet with North Korean refugees. This program, I think, is geared more towards people that want to stay in North Korea, that say, you know, this is my home and I want to change it from the inside out. We don't want to inspire people to leave. We want to inspire people to know that their home can be better, that they, with the knowledge they have, and it's tough because, you know, like I said, there is, you know, some sort of risk involved in actually accessing this information. But what I like is that because it's a little bit of a secret, when people watch them, I have a video somewhere else I can show you, when people watch these films together, you know, in secret, they share a secret, you know, and they maybe share with somebody else, and then they all are in the story. And when people start talking, it's what this guy doesn't want. He doesn't want people to know. He doesn't want them to share. But what really this is focused on is inspiring people to change their world, to know, to have the knowledge to change it from the inside out. We can't expect everyone to escape. Granted, all of our information and pretty much all of our data is based on the stories of the defectors that we work with. So, you know, they all found out the knowledge and wanted to leave. But at this point, it's more about even their work is all about focusing back inward and taking the knowledge that they've gained in the outside world and they've gained through media and exposure to try to empower their family and friends and everyone that's back in North Korea to stand up for their rights. Because we all have the same rights, regardless of who the leader is. All right. Thank you, guys.